You need to buy yourself a gun.
What?
Gun.
What?
Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you.
What?
What if your government tries to throw you in a dam?
What?
You're going to want a shotgun.
Oh.
What? One automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo.
Gun?
Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jack booty cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. They're rioting in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and I am avoiding the gun show loophole.
My name is Nicholas, and I'm doing my part to buy as many lower receivers as I can.
I hope you get consecutive serial numbers, and I hope you profit greatly on them in the ensuing rush. That shit is sure to follow.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because between a few days
Shout out
ago,
to the happy merchant.
yeah, between a few days ago and today, I can tell you that the price on stripped lowers has increased by about $20.
Yeah, it's looking like we're headed for another rush. Some people within the industry have had some prior advanced knowledge to this, and word is that rifles have been going up, or AR-15s in general have been going up, probably by about 30%. They're probably up about 50% right now, depending on the location. And we're looking for more, probably a good spike in prices again, maybe even to mimic early 2013 in the wake of the executive orders, which we'd like to discuss tonight. It's been a long time. There's been a lot of propaganda in the media. It's been nonstop pushing and spoon-feeding of really just base anti-gun rhetoric. It's not logical. It's very much knee-jerk reaction. And, well, this has culminated in the dream of the left. And when I say the left, I don't mean like Democrat versus Republican. I mean the ideological left, the Bolsheviks in our government to take away the guns. Once again, shout out to the happy merchant who always seems to be behind the push to take guns. Well, we've got tonight. We're sitting in the aftermath of the executive order, which really has a couple of different aspects to it, and right off, I'd like to say that it violates the current law as it did.
And not only does it violate current law as it exists, I think what you have right here is a clear example of executive overreach and the problem that we have with separating the powers of our government. We have a Congress that has 3 times within the last few years voted against expanding background checks. And as a matter of presidential edict, the guy sitting in the White House just unilaterally decides that this is action that he's going to take or that he's entitled to take. And I think that as it will probably go before the courts in very short order, at some point a sitting panel of Supreme Court justices is going to have to say this violates the Constitution and this is executive overreach.
Well, just right off the bat. All right. So there's the Healthcare Information and Personal Protection Act, right? The HIPAA laws, and the HIPAA laws are basically all about keeping your information confidential. If you're a healthcare employee, it's forbidden for you, and you could be subject to penalties, both civil and criminal penalties for releasing personal information. Say you work at a hospital, and certain pop star A comes in with some sort of overdose. If you release, you know, that pop star's information, or say like you even go a step further and take a picture of the pop star in the bed, and you release that for profit or just for shits and giggles, you're liable for that. And this ruling kind of addressing the mental health issue, which he started off in his statement. When I say he, I mean Obama spoke of reducing the stigma on mental illness and trying to have a better dialogue and more concrete action, and immediately creates the biggest stigma by saying that you have to take the guns away from them.
But yeah, not only that, he's not talking just about people that are, either deemed or adjudicated mentally defective, in terms of talking with their healthcare providers. I believe it's going as far as to direct the Social Security Administration to provide information for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives on individuals who are beyond a certain age limit. So what this is going to do is, like you said, this is going to place a stigma on the aged. This is going to place a stigma on people who have had instances of, decreased mental faculties. And
not even decreased mental faculties, something that many people go through that are considered normal. I mean, like, let's say you hit something that's very common out there, marital difficulties, and you go and you see a marriage counselor. Well, that could be a sign of you're gonna jihad or something.
Well, and that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why so many service members that we have in our nation refuse to seek assistance for any type of health care mentally, namely because they work in positions of trust with the government, and whenever there is their 5-year or 10-year limit that they need to go back and redo a security clearance investigation, there is that fear that admitting to something like that or voluntarily coming clean with that will basically put you in the crosshairs of having extra scrutiny on you for your clearance, which is really necessary for you to have your job. And when you think about it, all the information that came out, at least from the press conference that I watched, this was a political parade. This was nothing more than putting a serious group or a captive audience in front of the cameras to stand behind him and applaud everything he says. That once again, we've seen it with this president time and time again. There's absolutely no room for debate if you disagree with his policy or his actions. And
it's just based in the rhetoric that they use. This constant request for a reasonable discussion. Well,
no.
And that's trying to have a reasonable discussion, and honestly,
discussion is not
reasonable discussion from the other side. What the reasonable discussion they expect appears to be, you need to be lectured, and you need.
Well, you remember he's the constitutional scholar, and he taught this, and he knows a thing or two about the Second Amendment. And for anybody that was watching him, I think you can see with the amount of disdain he references the Constitution and he references the Second Amendment, because
he also references himself 78 times during that.
Yeah.
The conference.
So the way I look at this is that it was very telling when he said that, as he was talking about the Second Amendment, he was very, very familiar with it, and he understood what it says on that paper. Didn't reference the Constitution by name, but I think that anybody that can sit there and say, when you look at the guy's body language, he looks down his nose. That's one of the things that I think people scream, hey, this is an elitist. This is a member of the ruling class. This is somebody that is out of touch with the reality of what life is like in America today. And he has this panel of people assembled, and including former Congresswoman from Tucson, and make sure that he mentions her by name. Make sure that he mentions her husband by name, who, oh, by the way, fraudulently tried to obtain a firearm by filling out a 4473 incorrectly. But we're going to ignore those things. We're going to look past that, because the agenda is set for him to try and remove. Whether it's by a mass confiscation or whether it's by chipping away things bit by bit. And I think that's the route he's taking right now. And we'd like to get out there and kind of go over this executive action that he's taken and dissect it, I think.
Well, yeah. So, all right. So let's hit the first little point on there. If you just want to.
Okay, so
grab it. He's got highlighted sections.
Yeah, so the Office of the Press Secretary has made available publicly on the White House's website their fact sheet, or basically their talking points, and they've laid out a couple of their arguments, and we'll just hit them one by one. And number one is keeping guns out of the wrong hands through background checks. So if you listen to him today, he cited quite a few instances where mass shootings have occurred, but he didn't specify, oh yeah, by the way, in these situations, these people did pass a test, and guess what? They were background screened, and they were still legal to purchase the firearms that they did. Specifically, he mentioned the San Bernardino shootings, which his administration couldn't even come out and say was terrorism, and he couldn't even do the same thing for the Fort Hood rampage shooter, which is also terrorism, and it took his administration years to give those injured and killed the recognition that they deserve. So I think it's disingenuous in the very least to reference those by saying background checks are going to keep guns out of the hand, because if anything is an indication of why background checks don't work, shouldn't the San Bernardino shooters have come up on the Department of Homeland Security's background check for their visa application, that they had some kind of leanings, that they were bent on some kind of rampage? I think that's part of the problem that people can see right through.
Well, and not only that, but his proposals today don't do anything to increase any sort of background checks. None of his, as you'll see as we discuss this, none of his proposals really have any sort of effect on anything.
Right, and there's no enhancement to a background check that happens. Most background checks are completed relatively quickly, but within 3 days, if those background checks are not completed for whatever reason, the system is down, there's not enough people working the system or whatnot, there's nothing legally that prevents that retailer from completing the sale. So, I think that a lot of people are going to see past that aspect of it. The Attorney General has sent a letter to the states highlighting the importance of receiving a complete criminal history. Well, I'm pretty sure that retailers and folks that already have to comply with the law understand that. So, this kind of sounds like a hollow argument, in my opinion.
Oh, very much so. And what's more, with a hollow argument follows with hollow action.
Right, and hiring an additional 230 background examiners to process the background checks?
Well, I think they're going to have to, because, I believe the statistic I heard today was there were 45 background checks a minute in 2015.
Yeah, and since most of this is automated, and if there's any kind of reason that there would need to have something set aside to have further scrutiny, that's not going to take minutes or seconds. That's going to take days or weeks. So, this is supposed to be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what it's supposed to be doing now. So that is something I think is, it's like I said, it's a hollow action.
And just a lot of feel-good words.
Right, a lot of feel-good words with absolutely zero substance behind it. Let's go into number 2, which was making our community safer from gun violence. And this is where I kind of have a lot of heartache right off the bat, because anything that I've learned about this president is it's all about qualifying every word that you say. Notice that it's not make our community safer from violence, it's make our community safer from gun violence. Because
gun violence is 1,000 times worse than any other sort of violence.
You know what? We have an axiom in the Army. Dead is dead. Whether you go ahead and double tap somebody or whether or not you just blow out the back of their cranium, dead is dead. So, there's no violence that can't be prevented in that regard, because it's coming from a gun. We don't have calls to stamp out automobile violence when there's a victim of a hit and run, such as what happened in my location the other day. We don't have calls to ban black SUVs.
Nobody's going to sanction. Nobody's going to try and sue Ford for
and which, by the way,
or perhaps Texaco, where the person filled the vehicle.
Exactly, or the person who did the last service on the vehicle. But now we're going to go ahead and propose legislation through Congress that specifically targets manufacturers of products that, once out of their control, are reliant upon individuals to use them in the correct manner. This is one of the things that in the president's 2017 budget, he's including a request. Now, this is a request. This is not. The president doesn't control the purse strings of our nation. That is in the domain of Congress. But he's requesting funding for 200 new ATF agents and investigators to help enforce our gun laws. And this is one of the things that kind of sits there and says, well, you know what? If this was such a problem from the very beginning, as he was quick to point out, citing President Reagan and citing President Bush, why didn't you make this a priority in your first year in office? If that was truly the case, that's one of those things that says it's only for an expedient measure that I'm taking this action.
Nick, this is expedient action is probably the best thing to say other than knee-jerk reaction. This is once again just baseless and useless.
Right. So, going on to point number 3, which is increase mental health treatment and reporting to the background check system. And this is where I think that, he's gonna actually have an infringement on somebody's rights under I believe it's the Due Process Clause of the U.S. Constitution. So you're going to have $500 million investment that the administration and the president propose to increase access to mental health care. And I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of people being turned away for mental health care in the country. And I do see a lot of people that don't want to receive mental health care. And that's two different things. This is that whole disenfranchisement argument that's brought up during, election years and election cycles. We have people who are disenfranchised voters. We can't get them to the polls. It's the same thing here. This is making the assertion that there are people who are not able to access mental health care due to some outside or external influence. This is one of the things where he's directed the director of the Social Security Administration, basically stating that beneficiaries who are prohibited from possessing a firearm for mental health reasons will be reported. Well, here's the deal. If a doctor has already said that, wasn't that covered under the first thing?
Well, and not only that, but so you've got some sort of physical disability, because this isn't only limited to mental disabilities. It's people who may have problems with their finances, which, hell, I'm not disabled.
Our nation has a problem with its finances. What are you talking about?
Right. So now people who it may be as simple as they're not good with money. It may be as simple as they like lottery tickets.
Right.
And now they're disqualified from owning a firearm. They're disqualified for personal safety and protection, and their Second Amendment right.
Exactly. And here's one of the things that I really think is just the pie in the sky. We are going to shape the future of gun safety technology. Yeah. Okay. Do we have a problem with firearms in this nation that don't function as they should? Well, from time to time, that may be so. We have a process for handling that, and it's through safety recalls. Manufacturers of firearms find that it's much more economically feasible to get mass information out to the firearms consuming public in the event of a product flaw or manufacturing defect, which can have an adverse effect on life or limb. They do it all the time. If something is determined to be outside normal operating limits, they get that information out they get the firearms that are affected back in, issue vouchers to get repairs, do a number of things. And when I think that I sit here and see shape the future of gun safety technology, I get the picture of the bracelet gun from Germany, where it doesn't operate unless
Electronics, it's the Electronics AX1
exactly.
or A1X or whatever it was. Yeah, the thing that didn't necessarily work, did not contain the shock from a 22 long rifle, and did not work if the RFID bracelet ring watch band, whatever it was more than 6 inches away from the firearm, which means you couldn't change hands unless you change a bracelet.
Exactly. So, in addition to the 200 new ATF agents, we proposed the 500 million to address mental health issues. Well, okay, that's well and good. But if you're going to propose it, what are you willing to cut in order to fund that? Because as far as I know, during the left-hand side controlled Congress, there weren't any budgets passed, and they were all just continuing resolutions that were sending millions and millions of dollars down into our kids and our descendants' future debt. So that's one of the things that I have a big issue with. But I think we can go ahead and move into the actions themselves.
Let's go into the action, because this is really where it kind of hits the average firearm owner, and there are some effects from this. Nick, let's talk about the trusts issue. I think is the next one. Is that correct?
Well, I was going to go into the basically clarifying who it is that is going to be responsible for conducting background checks. I think that's the one that is going to be the big hurdle. That's going to be the one where there's a lot of room open for debate, and it's debate that's going to be given a definition by one side of the House, and a lot of people will not have the opportunity to determine that on their own. It's going to be determined for them. So
go ahead.
I was going to say, so the first thing is that the ATF already requires background checks from sellers and licensees of federal firearms licenses. These are, whether it's brick and mortar, whether it's people that have a online presence, whether it's people that do them from a storefront, those folks are predominantly and primarily engaged in the business of selling and dealing in firearms. Right now, the quantity and frequency of sales is a point of contention.
A point of contention. It's a mystery. It's going to be whatever they say it is.
Right. And from their own definition, a person can be engaged in the business of dealing in firearms regardless of the location in which the firearm transactions are conducted. So that means whether brick and mortar, trade show, or an online store. Now, quantity and frequency of sales, this is where it gets into the gray area. The White House press secretary's office specifically states there is no specific threshold number of firearms purchased or sold that triggers the licensure requirement. So this is the enigma. It could be one firearm. It could be 100. That doesn't necessarily get defined. And they state that there's already criminal penalties for failing to comply with these requirements. And anyone subject to 5 years in prison or up to $250,000 for not complying. Now, what exactly is the definitive number that makes you a person who deals in firearms? Is it the person who is, go ahead and just doing deals on, online websites, getting that next piece of thing and decides he doesn't like the last one and sells it to fund the next one? Or is it the guy who has already gone through the FFL requirements and is conducting a home-based business? Well, it sounds like what they're trying to shoot for is every single transaction, because based on their own definition, there is no specific threshold number of firearms purchased or sold. So once again, we have an enigma in this and a lot of room to wiggle.
And when the government wiggles, somebody ends up in chains or in flames or dead on the side of the highway. We've seen it happen before.
Exactly. You have the Attorney General who believes in her legal opinion that the president has the authority to do this. Well, hello, She works for the president. She's appointed by the president. Do you honestly believe that she would turn around and tell the president, her boss, yeah, I don't think you have the authority to do that? I believe she's going to say, yes, sir, 3 bags full, and move out and do exactly what he tells her to do, which is exactly what happened with the previous Attorney General and Eric Holder.
Right, and we've seen that there are supposed exceptions for collectors and refining your collection. There are supposed exceptions for family heirlooms and collections that are passed down through inheritance, which to me, honestly, shows that there's no teeth in this law, because unless that somebody is underneath some sort of investigation, and they're not some sort of crazy record-keeping fool that says, that shows that they went and, they're buying brand new at a store and flipping the next day. There's really no teeth in this. It's going to take a hell of a lot of work, and you're probably not going to prosecute anybody who's any sort of threat.
Well, and here's the thing, just like the president, it made my ears bleed to hear him say this lie that he likes to keep bringing up, that mass shootings just don't happen outside of the United States. I believe the term he used, do not happen in other advanced nations. Well, I seem to believe that he's either taken a leave of absence in the last few years, because whether it was the guy in Norway, the dudes in France just this past summer, what constitutes a mass shooting? One person dead, 2 persons dead, 14 people dead. The shooter in Norway had 70 people killed. I believe that's a mass shooting. I believe Norway is as advanced as they're going to go. From my time in Norway, they were pretty damn advanced.
In Norway, they give people Volvos as part of like the Norwegian Constitution. I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, it cost me for 2 slices of pizza and 2 Snickers and 2 Cokes, $35 in Norway. I'd say that's pretty advanced.
Yeah, they're fairly advanced.
Yeah, whether it's mass shootings in other nations across Europe, it happens in Germany, it happens in Czech Republic. These are not nations that are backwards. You may want to consider Russia backwards, but they have mass shootings and they have very strict gun laws. I think it's disingenuous for the president to say such things, knowing that full well his argument doesn't stand up to any sort of truth, and the litmus test is readily available for anybody to determine on their own. Yeah, he's full of shit.
That's basically the bluntest way to say it. He's absolutely full of shit. None of these have any sort of effect right now until we get into I believe now is the next one is the trust. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, and here's the thing with the trust. You want to go ahead and put something down on paper for a descendant to do. That's kind of what a trust is considered to be. Something that go ahead and executes your will or provides for something to happen for people underneath, something that you've laid out, through a legal process. I kind of want to get your take on this. I don't even, it's at that point where he's getting into the nitpick and the nitnoid stuff that we don't generally have a problem with firearms being willed or issued via a trust for people going out and conducting crimes with them.
Well, and that's really the thing. How many weapons that are under the trust, and I will, I'll kind of not necessarily admit it, but there are people who are buying things under the trust that they would normally not purchase otherwise. That would not try to go through necessarily the FBI check, just because they don't. The item's not worth the hassle of the background check. It's not worth the $200 tax stamp. It's not worth any of the bullshit process that you have to go through for, say, something as simple as a shotgun with a barrel is shorter than 18 inches, or a rifle with a barrel shorter than 18 inches. It doesn't make it any more deadly. As a matter of fact, it probably makes it less deadly because your accuracy is affected. You've got less powder burning, thus creating less gas, which is less energy downrange. So these are just feel-good measures that really affect looks for the most part. Now, for the trust, this is bad, and I really don't like it. which I hope that if you are interested in the trust, you act
quickly.
right now.
Quickly. Yeah, here's the deal. According to the White House press secretary, basically the trusts are dangerous because of outdated regulations regarding them. They state that individuals have been able to avoid background check requirements by applying to acquire these firearms and other items through trusts, corporations, and other legal entities. So basically what they're saying is that if you have an item that's considered to fall under the National Firearms Act, whether it's a silencer, whether it's a machine gun, things like that, they're saying that you're not going to be able to go ahead and get these things through the trust that you have applied for somebody that's in your family. And what they're saying is that the number of these applications has increased significantly over the years, from 900 applications in the year 2000 to over 90,000 in 2014. I think what he's trying to say is that people are attempting to use the trust to circumvent a background check requirement. And I don't think that's the case. I think that people are probably able to apply because it's a lot easier to apply now.
If we just look at the numbers, if there's from 900 to 90,000 or whatever, what did you say it was? 900 and 900,000?
It was 900 to more than 90,000.
Okay, so we've got a great
14-year span.
We've got a great big increase. That kind of shows that there's a consumer demand for the product.
Well, yeah, not only that, it's probably people that are sitting there saying that I don't have any faith in the government to dispose of my firearms in the way that I want them to happen.
Well, and see, and this is where we get into the real issue. This whole thing that this is just the federal government at this point trying to reinforce the concept that they have the monopoly on violence.
Right.
That the
exactly.
state must maintain the monopoly on violence. And to be honest with you, that's not what our Constitution, the founding document of our nation, is
which is in itself a living document, contrary to what the professor in chief believes. So when you sit there and say, oh, we've got this kind of, I guess you can consider it from his aspect, a loophole that he's attempting to close. But then you turn around and say, well, hey, wasn't another part of his plan to require people to report a loss or theft of a firearm? Well, when was the last time the U.S. government reported the loss of 20,000 semi-automatic M4 rifles in Iraq to the United States people?
When was the last time that they reported, what was it, more than 900 rifles going to cartels in Mexico? How many background checks were applied to those weapons?
How many background checks were applied to the people who were running guns in Benghazi?
I think that really takes the whole safe neighborhood initiative and kind of turns it on its ear, don't you?
Well, it takes a village to satisfy Bill Clinton, but I'll tell you what, it's going to take a whole lot of ammo manufacturers to satisfy the demand that is going to be coming up in the next couple of years.
I have a feeling that the demand is on, the rush is on. Just looking at a couple of things online, your experience today. Prices are going back.
Yeah, they are going back up. And like I said, I have been kind of kicking around the idea of following through and finishing up a AR-15 build that started over 2 years ago. Kind of took a barrel that I found in the .223 Wild caliber. Was going to go ahead and start building that, and one way or another ended up building a 5.56 barrel instead. Kept that barrel, and you just over time built the 300 Blackout, and now had this barrel with an extra upper on standby. Went ahead and looked at a couple different sites. Found that I was going to look at getting a complete lower for about $179. Kind of molded around the last couple of days, decided not to. And then the story came out that the president was going to just go forth and go to Hawaii on his vacation and come back ready to kick ass and chew bubblegum. And sure enough, I went to go ahead and make my purchase this morning. None of the lowers that I had previously seen were available today, and they were all out of stock next to them. And then for my second, my plan B, which was to go ahead and buy the strip lower, and the price had increased on that by $20. So I think that that
Which
was,
is what comes out to like a 40% increase in price.
yeah. I just completed math, man. Don't ask me any numbers questions.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
something like
did
a
that.
40.
I did that in a 16-week semester. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, you've got all the math you need.
That's it. So, the funny thing is that I looked at a couple of different retailers, whether it was Anderson Manufacturing, whether it was Aero Precision, a couple of the other ones that are, not exactly bargain basement, but some of the more reasonably priced retailers and manufacturers. And honestly, Palmetto State was the only one that I was able to come up with that was, number one, available, and number two, was competitively priced at what I would say would be pre-hysteria pricing.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well, and some things that I didn't necessarily think that I would see a rush on at this point. Like block magazines are apparently hard to find right now.
Yeah, not only that, I get a couple mailers from some other companies that I've done business with in the past, and across the summer everything was police buybacks or police turn-ins. For whenever the law enforcement departments would upgrade, or they would go through a life cycle and sell those firearms. I haven't seen any of that available. And the Glock magazines had been something that were selling hot all summer, nowhere to be found. So,
Right.
that's one of the key indicators for me as I start looking at, ammunition availability and pricing. I start looking at lower receiver and lower parts kits, barreled assemblies for ARs, and that's one of the things that I can sit here and say, yeah, it's at that point right now where I believe that I wouldn't say it's a panic rush right now. But yeah, I'm starting to see, just going back and browsing the sites where I was at today, almost all the products that were, trying to be able to purchase, all of them are out of stock. So, you're going to see in the next couple of days, I think that you're going to see pricing really start to go through the roof. You're probably going to start seeing some of the online, the sites where people can get together to do person-to-person sales. I don't think we're going to be at the post Sandy Hook level of insanity where ARs are going for $1,200 a piece. But
No.
yeah, I think you're going to start to see a little increase in
that's
pricing.
not going to happen. I think we will see an increase in pricing. I think we will see an increase in the price of person-to-person transfers. Simply because anytime that there's a push for more laws, you have people who are naturally resistant to it. I mean, it's just basic psychology. You tell a child that no, they can't have it, and that kind of increases the desirability of the object. Well, you tell somebody that they have to have something registered, and well, fuck you, I don't want to have it registered.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's going to lead to an increase in the price. There's a couple other things going on in the gun world right now, and firearms related.
I can tell you right off the bat, it was a smart deal for me to purchase stock in Sturm Ruger and Company, because that stock just hit its 52-week high, and I bought it when it had its 52-week low.
Right, and Ruger actually has a new product out. They have a Ruger American pistol, and this appears to be a item that is dedicated and made in mind with the Army pistol contract. It's a polymer pistol, available in 9mm and 45. It is not available in 40 caliber. I find that to be kind of interesting, since the 40 caliber was all the rage, and now a large manufacturer is avoiding the 40 caliber completely. In 45 ACP, it comes with a 10-round magazine. In 9mm, it comes with a 17-round mag. It's got 3 back straps to it, replaceable. Comes with a rail on the front, and pretty much meets all the Army pistol competition criteria, with the exception of it is not Coyote tan.
Yeah. Damn it.
Which, I think they could probably rectify that fairly quickly. But to me, this looks like as a brand new, all new design, it's pretty nifty. It looks like the retail price on this thing is going to be about $450 to $550, depending on where it's at. I'm sure everywhere it's at for the first couple of weeks, it will be the $550. New Ruger items, especially Ruger semi-automatic pistols, in my experience, are a bit touchy. And I don't think I would personally take any kind of brand new Ruger semi-automatic pistols that were in the first 3 or 4 months of production.
Yeah.
I think Ruger like beta tests on consumers. After that, usually everything from Ruger is rock solid fine.
Well, you know, what better way to get input for your engineers to go in and fix a problem than to get it out to the public, have them tinker with it at the range, because you know most people that are firearms enthusiasts are going to go out there and put it through its paces. And if you're not willing to pay the engineers to do that, you got to have another method of getting it done.
Something else I've seen today that was fairly interesting, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this earlier, so I'll just kind of, I don't know if you've seen this, but I had a chance to view a couple videos on it, and actually I called the company today, and from Franklin Armory, Franklin Arsenal,
yeah,
out of Nevada. They've got a binary, it's a binary trigger system, and what that means is there's a discharge for the pull and a discharge for the release of the trigger. So you're in effect getting 2 shots per pull, or what is traditionally defined as a pull. Now that seems to be like it would violate the 1 bullet per pull law, but they have ATF approval. They have an acceptance letter, and they're shipping. Now this trigger pack fits into all AR-15s, and it's running $399 right now. They have dedicated lowers that they're building that are somewhere in the $800 range. They're a little bit pricey for me, but it's a really nifty item. It shows to replicate fairly rapid fire fairly quick. It does have a few drawbacks. It seems that it fires so fast that it can bind up. You can work the trigger faster than than the bolt can reset it.
Yeah,
and it was evident with a couple of clears, with a couple of malfunctions that they had, which were just simple clearing drills. And I think with a little bit of practice and the timing on that could be a pretty nifty item. I'd sure as hell like to see one of those for 1022.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen a whole lot of. I would say I haven't been around a whole lot of new technology in the handgun realm in the last couple months. I've been strictly focused on looking at shotguns and looking at rifles as what's the going thing in my locale. But I'm trying to really wrap my head around this. What I think the impact of these actions are going to be in terms of what the president is doing.
Well, I think the impacts of these actions are going to be what the impacts of all actions are going to be. And that's going to be a further divide amongst Americans. There's going to be a left and a right, and the chasm between is going to grow even greater. As we see right now in Oregon, there's some unrest, and I'm divided on this thing in Oregon. Well, I support people's right to protest, and honestly, I think sometimes the protests like they're making right now, which is for people not aware, there's been a group, and they're related to the Bundy Ranch group, and they've taken up the rights of somebody who leases land from the Bureau of Land Management. Some shady stuff going on both sides, to be honest with you, on both sides.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that, anytime the government has been involved in a land grab, it's pissed off a lot of people, and you ask any Native American about federal government land grabs, and they can tell you it doesn't work out in their favor.
No, it never does.
And you've got a family. I was going to say you've got a family whose livelihood has been put at stake because of the Bureau of Land Management moves to further restrict their ability to ranch and raise cattle. And these individuals who committed arson by doing a preventive fire, well, you can look at it from a couple different ways. Anybody that does sound forestry management will conduct controlled burns in order to make sure that the undergrowth isn't a source or fuel for fire.
Right, and these are accepted techniques, and then there's also the definition and the actual interpretation of what was actually done. And for me, that's neither here nor there. It's the action of the people in Oregon.
Right, and this is the thing. I could think there would probably be a better way for them to go ahead and get their point across rather than to occupy a Bureau of Land Management building that really,
Occupied.
yeah, it's Occupy Oregon, that it's not going to get the level of traction. Number
Well, and
one,
not
I
only
don't
that,
think this is as well planned out as they would like you to believe.
well, there's some people with some shady backgrounds in this, and I'll name names. There's a radio host named Pete Santilli, who's kind of a wannabe Alex Jones, and he's an actual FBI informant, a documented FBI informant, and he's at this. So anytime he's involved with anything, my stink meter goes off the charts, and I don't believe it's genuine once he's involved, or if it is genuine, it's soon to be corrupted beyond any kind of recognition. Another thing that I've got a major, serious major issue is these are the guys who are trying to foment revolution and set the world right and all this, but they don't bring a lunch.
We didn't get to make our sandwiches. Please send food.
I'm not joking, right? This morning they sent out tweets saying that they were running low on supplies. They needed like ammunition, granola, diapers, and other Mormon friendly snacks.
Yeah, wasn't it Napoleon that said an army travels on its stomach?
Who the hell brings babies that need diapers to an armed conflict with possibly armed townspeople and possibly armed federal agents? Last I heard, the FBI hostage rescue team was on the way, and they got a thing from shooting people's diapers.
Well,
Who the hell?
Take a look at what happened at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Last time people tried to occupy an area, federal government was pretty quick to step in. Same thing happened under Clinton with Waco. This is you got to kind of think that maybe that wasn't the brightest move.
Right, and like Captain Gringo calling them vanilla ISIS, that's about exactly what it's turned into. I think it's really become a joke. I think that at this time when we've got this, mandatory conversation about gun rights coming up, these, jihadists kind of really, I think they're kind of putting a black mark. And I mean, I'm really not trying to say don't riot or don't stand up for yourself. What I'm saying is know who you're doing it for, and remember that saying, discretion is a better part of valor.
Oh, I've heard that once or twice in my life.
Right, and I think this is a situation where it applies.
Well, the individuals who are reporting to prison.
Let me. Yeah, they're gone. Those guys.
They voluntarily showed up in Southern California to report to prison, and their family has publicly distanced themselves from the sons of the Bundy ranchers and said, "Yeah, this isn't what we're about. We're not about this."
Right. So I mean, look, if you're going to do this, number one, bring enough goddamn granola to last you for the entire siege. But
and how does that typically happen? If we take a look at, if we go back to Occupy Wall Street, this was the 99%. This is the people who were being funded by various
Occupy Wall Street had a bank account with Bank of America.
There you go. So when you look at it, there I see false flag. I see false flag written in on it.
Well, I see bullshit. Honestly, if this was real insurrection and all that, you're not going to be able to send out a tweet.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Our law enforcement, as inept as they are at most things, they are certainly adept at being able to determine via social media posts, because if I can do it, and I've been trained how to do it, they can do it. And they're getting paid a lot more than me. And if I'm good at my job and being able to determine where stuff is at, as by what's happening on, various means of social media, they can do it too. And they know exactly who's out there, and they know exactly who their network of friends is.
Well, and maybe this is nothing more than another, kind of like what I figured, and many other people figured, that Jade Helm was just a gigantic, data mining operation to see who posted shit about, Jade Helm, and are there white security trucks in our area? No, this is really just a check to see who's talking about Jade Helm, so we can categorize you.
Yeah, and we've got our good friend of the show, Oddball chiming in that a lot of the folks that are actually showing up there are former members of the United States military, and a lot of these are what we would say salty characters, or folks would have either uncharacterized or other than honorable discharge. Not necessarily somebody who's a career criminal, but somebody who couldn't color in the lines when they were told to.
Right, and this is their chance to go, buck wild John Rambo style. And
Well,
to be honest with
you got to have I think they have a minimum of
let
3
me be
on
very
lobby
clear
patches.
let me be very clear about what I'm saying. I'm not disavowing any sort of armed resistance, because I firmly believe a firearm is one of your greatest rights, and it is your last and best way to say no, I do not comply. But if you're going to stand with somebody, know who the hell they are, and it'd probably really be nice if they were going to stand with you. I've not seen anybody from the Bundy Ranch go and stand in a militant fashion, armed and ready for some sort of conflict with anybody who got their fucking house taken away through any kind of like mortgage loan scandal.
Yep.
No, it's just if you're a rancher, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on ranchers, and I know that they're important to the economy and all that, but poor farmers drive tractors that cost $750,000. I rapidly lose my sympathy for them when I know how the system works, and I guess the indulgence that they expect and they're requesting will not ever be returned, and it's not even a thought. It's not even on their radar that they should grab, Ammon Bundy and 5 big old corn-fed boys and go stand with some single mom who's getting, pushed out of her house because she's a couple months behind, or there's some sort of bullshit with her mortgage.
Yeah.
The minute they do that, then they have my support. But until then, they're just a bunch of self-entitled pricks out there dancing.
Well,
And
here's
you
the
didn't
funny
bring
thing.
enough fucking granola to the goddamn raid. I mean, Jesus Christ. Everybody knows to bring enough granola to the goddamn gunfight.
I'll bet you that is one place where they are running out of beef jerky pretty damn quick.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, now that we're on it, Michael, let's go ahead and hit the 4 rules of firearm safety.
All right. Well, first rule of firearm safety: every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect and verify that it is not loaded. So open it up, clear the chamber, break open the action, make sure that it's empty. Rule number 2: keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Know what your don't cover anything you don't want to destroy. Rule number 3: know what your target is, know what is beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4: keep the booger hook off the bank switch until you're ready to discharge the weapon. And that goes for you morons out in Oregon. Keep your fucking fingers off the trigger.
Yeah, because you know what? You don't want law enforcement agencies who perceive a threat at any one point in time.
Really, I mean, like once you bring the hostage rescue team into this, FBI hostage rescue.
Well, I'm waiting to see where a lot of those guys that were purchasing mass quantities of ammunition for the federal government, that might be an opportunity for them to use it.
Right. And then once it's used, it's a win-win situation because they have to repurchase it, right? They got to meet the budget.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Not only that, you get the next case for mass shooting prevention.
That's right. And then what sort of restriction can come after that? I mean, I don't know. Something I did see that was kind of in the asinine category, and I can't think of her name right now. I didn't grab the story for this, but in New York State, as a complement to the SAFE Act, New York State Senator has proposed limiting the purchase of ammunition to twice the capacity of the firearm per month, which would give, in theory, a 20-round ammunition limit per month for a semi-automatic handgun that holds 10 rounds. And if you have a 5-shot J-frame revolver, you're screwed. You get 10 rounds a month.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that every type of firearm, unless it's an internal box magazine, has extended magazines for it. So the way I look at it is, if that was in New York State and you could actually own more than the standard capacity 30-round magazines, you should get the 100-round magazines for your AR and double up on that.
Speaking of 100-round magazines for AR, PMag has released this week their 60-round P drum. Looks to be a functional item and up to usual PMag quality stuff. This joins PMag's series for the AR-15s, the M4 rifles. PMag also makes AK-47 magazines in 7.62 by 39 and in 5.45 by 39, and they are also making Glock magazines in the double stack 9mm category for the 19 and the 17, which also fit in the Glock 26.
Yeah.
Good quality stuff, and that's coming out. I think the PMag drum is probably a little bit pricey for my taste. I've seen ads for it for $79. That's just a little bit too much, I think. For basically the same capacity that you'd have in two magazines. Two $7 metal magazines.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I think that, we're going to start seeing a lot of, in addition to the ammunition coming up scarce again, or the prices being raised, you start to look at the cost of your metal, or your GI issue mags going up from about anywhere as low as $9 to, $15. Look and see those being sold for about $20. And if, look for those Magpul mags to start going between $30 and, about double their normal price.
Right, and I think honestly, I think we're going to see a spike in the prices, and then honestly, I think they're going to come back down because really, in the end, there's no teeth to this legislation. There's really no effect from it.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not legislation, because I think we agree that words have meaning.
I apologize.
The executive action, and I think that this was a political dog and pony show. This was get people up on the stage that are willing to sit up there and be seen behind me.
Everybody, make sure you cry and wipe away a tear on stage.
Yeah, exactly. Reference yourself every so often and remind everybody how you were a congressional scholar and professor and you taught this, and you know what those 26 words on that paper mean. Because as far as I remember, there is no other amendment in the Constitution of the United States that specifically says shall not be infringed.
Right.
I don't believe that there is anything in the First Amendment that says the right of the people to peacefully assemble shall not be infringed.
Well, and to be honest with you, shall not be infringed just really kind of like distracts and degrades from the chance to have a reasonable discussion.
Yeah. Well, it's common sense, right? It's all it's a common sense discussion.
Children.
Yeah. So, it's I just find the level of disdain that this president has for the individual citizen of the United States who has God-given inalienable rights that were endowed by their creator. I believe that he's trying to subvert that to be rights that can be rescinded based on the current administration.
I don't know, man. Look, the way I see it, buy as many guns as you can, hide them.
I'll tell you now, buy your loaders and buy your barreled uppers now. Quick shout out to a company that I've done business with in the past. Their prices have kind of remained consistent. If you get a chance, go online and look at MAS Defense, MAS Defense.com. Anybody that's interested in looking at some barreled uppers, you can go ahead and get you one for anywhere between $279 and probably up to $350 for some of those hot 300 blackout, that 5.56, and they come with rails already good to go.
Anything that you're looking at other than your parts, anything that grabs your eye in the next couple of weeks?
I was looking at probably picking up a good 870 shotgun or something like that.
I think that's a good call. I think a good quality pump shotgun is indispensable. I've kind of got a thing for that 9mm Glock magazine lower from Palmetto State.
All right. Well, Jules, thanks
And
for having us out here. Michael, it's good to hear you again.
Nick, I appreciate you being here with me. Jules, thank you very much for UCY.TV, one of the most innovative platforms in all of any sort of radio. Great program.